right. Good morning, everybody. I am Veena Duraisamy. I'm a developer advocate at Snowflake. And in today's episode, we are going to talk about all things Snowflake Workspaces. Well, you've all heard about what Snowflake Workspaces are. This is the modern SQL development experience that is revolutionizing data collaboration. In case you missed it, you have nothing to worry about. Today, with me, Alan, the product manager of Workspaces, is going to take you through all things Workspaces and everything more. But in particular, we will explore how Workspaces move beyond traditional worksheets to offer a file-based environment with native Git integration, built-in AI-powered coding experience with inline Copilot, and other features that enhance productivity and collaboration. So, wait no more. Welcome, Alan, to the show. Very, very excited.
Hey, Vino, it's good to be on. Happy to be here representing the Workspaces team. So what questions do you have for me?
I think before I get into the questions, I wanted to say that there was a lot of announcements that came from the summit, and I share about them on the socials. And Workspaces seems to be the audience's favorite, like community's favorite feature, and people get very excited, especially when we talk about Workspaces. So I am equally excited, if not more, to talk about Workspaces today. But somebody has been living under the rock and they don't know what Workspaces mean. Tell me, what exactly is Workspaces and why should I be excited as a developer?
Yeah, Workspaces is the new editor for everything SQL and beyond. So you can think of it as a really advanced version of a worksheet where you can go beyond just like it's your one editor for everything like worksheets, in the future notebooks, even streamlets, a single pane of glass where you can do all of your Snowflake coding or editing in one location. So, whereas previously you had to flip between multiple editors, maybe you spent some time in the separate worksheets interface, and then you spent some time in the notebooks interface, and then you spent some time editing a Streamlit app. You will be able to do that all side by side in the future with Workspaces.
Got it. And I think this also means now I'm able to better organize my data project because sometimes when I'm doing setup, I have my code in a SQL script, which is living in worksheets. And then I have the data exploration part, which is in a notebook, which lives under a different, you know, I guess, workspace. But now with workspaces, I will be able to pull them all together and better organize my data projects. Is that right? Is that fair to say?
Yes, absolutely. You'll be able to see everything organized in like a familiar file management system, essentially. So whereas before you would have to look at different lists of like one list contains worksheets, another contains notebooks, another contains Streamlets, and so on, you'll be able
Mhm.
to see basically a nested list that contains all your files of any types organized any way you want with simple drag and drop.
Gotcha. I know it's not my place and I'm not in branding or marketing, but would it be fair to say this would be the Mary Kondo of your data files? To organize them better, data projects and dev and staging and prod and whatnot. So it's
Some people like to joke internally that they have a lot of fun organizing things because before it was pretty painful. You had to like click a bunch of buttons. It was not super convenient. You couldn't do things like folders inside of folders, so the organizational capabilities were not as good as they are today. But
Mhm.
now you have full flexibility, unlimited nesting for your folders. Drag and drop makes it really easy to organize. So it is a lot better and more fun than before.
Gotcha. I think that's very helpful. But I feel like we've talked enough. Maybe some of us could benefit from seeing it in action so we have a better mental model. I know you have a demo cooked up. Let's see that in action.
Yeah, absolutely. So here on my screen, you can see I have the new Workspaces editor already open. You can find it by clicking on the Projects tab here and clicking on the Workspaces option that pops up. For me, I have Workspaces set as my default editor, which means that Workspaces is not only moved to the top, but it's also removed the Worksheets section from this list. And we can talk about that a little bit more later on in the demo. You can make it your default editor by clicking on the settings icon in the top right, clicking on this, and you have an option to set it as your default editor. If you want to turn it off, you can also flip this off very simply. And here I can also turn it back on like so. On the left-hand side, You can also see some familiar features you're probably used to. So you have your Object Explorer down here, plus a new file manager that I was talking about for easy drag and drop organization. For
Mhm.
example, if I'm looking at, okay, a restaurant's top level folder, and then I have like drink types and food types subfolders, look, burger does not belong in drink types. So then I can easily drag and drop this into food types down here, like so. You can also, if you want, find your old worksheets here inside the worksheets section. Just click this to expand it, and you'll be able to find your old worksheets. And you can also drag and drop those directly into the Workspace File Manager to improve the file management capabilities. Now, in the main pane, we've also added layout customization so you can optimize your workflow better. Whereas previously you would have had to have multiple windows side by side, you can now actually do something like this, where I can click this little ellipsis, split right or split down,
Mhm.
within one browser window, have this kind of side by side experience for quick comparisons, or let's say you're working across like a file that stores like helpful reusable code, or maybe you have like a markdown file or a notebook next to a SQL file. These are just like some of the examples that you'll be able to do inside of Workspaces.
Mhm.
Next, Next, for the exploratory data analysis, we've added a bunch of new productivity features and improved some existing ones. So the results section, like this, looks fairly similar, but there's a few nuanced differences. So for starters, we have these inline column statistics for quick interactive insights with just a single click, like so. You can also use these to easily filter down, which essentially lets you drill down through a few clicks. And you can do this iteratively on different columns. And you can also use charts, which is new and improved with new chart types such as pie charts, which is similarly configurable from the old editor. Lastly, we also have the new query history, which is now in a global location at the bottom of your editor, freeing up space from viewing the results. And you can toggle between a single file mode and an all files mode, making Workspaces a true command center for both ad hoc work and complex projects spanning many files. And then lastly, Workspaces also has the new inline Copilot, which can write SQL better than ever before with the latest industry-leading LLMs. You can use it to write queries from scratch or modify existing ones while accepting or rejecting suggested changes in a diffing view. So here you can see you can pull it up using Command I. You can also press this button that shows up here. So that's all for the super quick tour. Again, to make Workspaces your default editor, you can just click on the settings over here in the top right and toggle this on. You may have had this already happen for you by your administrator. Your administrator can control this using an account level parameter on behalf of the entire account, but you can still opt out at the user level as well. Additionally, Snowflake is also going to be rolling out this change to customers gradually through a series of unbundled BCRs, or behavior changes. So here you can see in the documentation, we have several cohorts listed, some of which have already begun, such as new organizations, on-demand accounts, orgs with standard edition accounts and below. And then we have some that are up and coming, such as orgs with enterprise edition and below accounts. And then we have a few which are not yet announced in terms of the dates, but will be coming soon, early next year. So that's all I have for the Workspaces demo today. You'll get all the familiar features you're used to, plus the new layout customization, the enhanced data exploration tools, and the improved Copilot to make your workflow even more efficient. So
Mhm.
with that, I'll pass it back to you, Vino. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions initially, but I definitely want the folks watching to put in any questions that you might have into the comment section, and we will get to answering all these questions. But I just wanted to quickly summarize because it just feels like, oh, Snowflake Workspaces is just like an integrated development environment. But looking at the, I want to say, number of quality of life improvements that are bundled together, it feels like it's almost like a full blown IDE experience because as a data engineer today, you have setup.sql scripts that you run just once, and they live in an entirely different space. And then you have your own notebooks that you run on a periodic basis. So they live separately. And your database, of course, is probably in the same one. But at the end of the day, you're just struggling so hard to make sure, even when you have Git integration set up, right? In your Git repo, they probably live together, but within the Snowflake experience, they are living in different places and you're like constantly juggling between the two. But with this, there's also this best practices in data engineering that we're able to, or even analytics that we're able to follow. Firstly, put all of your source code in one space under your data project. And secondly, we can think about this whole, development, staging, and production, and the files related to each of these, stored in some of these in a better way. More than organization, I see now we have inline Copilot. That is so cool. I'm like, I don't know if that should be bundled with Workspaces or they're a hero feature of their own. But this is definitely cool, especially for analytics and quick data exploration. I would love, love, love to use inline Copilot just to get me started and running. And on top of that, I know it sounds minor, but just the fact that I have the query history tab and the results, and that I could play around with moving things into my screen. Because I give demos a lot of the time, and when you're giving demos, I'm like, I don't want to see the query history, but I want to focus more emphasis on the results, right? And so just giving me the flexibility to move things around definitely feels like a big change and a good improvement for me. With that said, this is my way of summarizing or really getting excited about Workspaces. And tell me, you did talk briefly about how does this come up in the future? Meaning I could either set up Workspaces as a default or Snowflake would sort of roll this out by itself, right? And you showed us in the settings and the user preferences how you could go do that.
Yeah. So maybe if I can go back to screen sharing, actually. So just to revisit, you can always, as a user in control of your own editor preference, you can go to this setting inside of Workspaces and change that here. But also, we've added a UI for administrators. So you can go to your user icon here, click on the settings option that shows up in this menu, and that will take you to this page, which is where the administrator can control this setting at the account level. And again, like it's not just a UI, you can also do this programmatically by just running a SQL command. And we have that documented over here. So here you can use the command alter account set use workspaces for SQL equals always. And that'll set it for the default. And then of course you can also undo that as well.
Gotcha. I think this is very cool. And I have some questions from the folks. I want to say, I think Michael, who has, can I create shared workbooks specific to certain projects for reusability across teams? I know we talked about shared workspaces, but I will let you take it.
Yeah, this is a really great question. So one thing that I would love to touch on is the new sharing, or specifically shared workspaces. So this is currently in private preview. If you click on this drop-down menu, you'll be able to click create shared workspaces here. If you're part of the private preview, it'll ask you some very basic questions about the name and the roles that you want to share it with. And the shared workspace, it essentially becomes like an object in your database, and everything is RBAC controlled, so it makes it really easy for teams to share work. And you have a very simple like push-pull kind of commit-based system. So for those of you familiar with Git, that'll probably feel a little bit more intuitive. But we've also tried to keep it simple for your typical analyst who might not be as familiar with Git as well. And you can even see a little sneak peek of like some of the sharing functionality we have here. So for example, this is a shared file, but we've also added easy affordances to move these, this is a private file, but we've also added easy affordances to move these into shared workspaces if you already have those set up.
This is so cool. And I think before we wrap up, I have just one more question, which is today, if I'm using worksheets, notebooks, and I guess Streamlit apps, how would I think about workspaces? Because it does look like there is some overlap.
Yes. So today, while notebooks, Streamlit apps, and worksheets all live in different editors, everything is moving towards a file-based model in the future. So that means everything, since it's file-based, will be able to be edited inside of your workspace in that editor.
Mhm.
So instead of jumping between multiple, you have it all in a single pane of glass. And because we have really nice layout customizability, we also make it easier for your workflow to work on multiple different files at the same time. So you could work on a SQL file for your ad hoc queries, and then you think, okay, maybe this is time to productionize it. I can use it in my Streamlit app, or I can use it in a notebook, and maybe I want to use that for sharing because it's more like visual or more of like a tool that I can share with other people. That's really the power of workspaces. Everything in one place, a lot of advanced capabilities. Basically, everything you can do in Snowsight, but single place instead of having to jump around.
Awesome. And I think when you were sharing the screen and talking about the admin UI, I also noticed another interesting thing, which is where there's a Git integration option. So I want to say that you could also work with your own Git repository and pull in the code from there and work off of here.
Yes, absolutely. So the Git integration is already in GA, so everyone should have that available. You can connect to an existing repository, and the setup steps are fairly straightforward. So you can do that today if you wanted.
Awesome. And did you say that Streamlit is also coming to Workspaces?
Streamlit is also coming to Workspaces, though we don't have any official dates.
Gotcha. Coming soon. Stay
Yes.
tuned. Awesome. Okay, then. I think with that, we have all the questions from the folks answered. And yeah, you gave us a pretty detailed picture of what should we be excited about, particularly with Workspaces. I guess my favorites being the inline Copilot and essentially having notebooks and Streamlit apps and worksheets all in one place. Well, I guess there is no more worksheets. There's going to be Workspaces. But yeah, I think those two are probably my top favorites from all that you've shared today. And thank you so much for coming in. And like you can see the comments, there are like folks very excited saying, I'm looking forward to familiarizing myself with Workspaces. And like I said, from the community, there's a lot of excitement about Workspaces. Like I know for a fact when I talk about it, like on the socials or even in person in the meetups and everywhere, it's a lot of excitement around it. And I cannot wait for folks to get started. But thanks for coming in, showing us how to get started, and also telling us about what is coming so we can be more excited for what's to come. Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Try Workspaces, everyone.
Yep. All right.